Well, the field has shrunken from 24 teams down to 16 now after day 2. And in day 2, we've had the defending national champions as well as some Hutch returners come in and provide quite the show, starting with Barton and then going on to Trinidad State as well as Angelina in South Georgia. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into day 2, starting with the defending national champions Barton and Brunswick. Like I said, the defending national champions held serve here as they faced the last team in the tournament, the Brunswick Dolphins, and they won this game going away 92-62 for our first really big blowout in the tournament. Yes, Vincent's had an 18-point win last night, but Barton picks up a huge win today by 30-plus points. Brunswick just could not handle it. Let's go ahead and look at some of these stats for both teams. Brunswick shot it okay, 26 of 68, but when Barton shoots it at a 53% clip, 37 of 69, it's hard to defend that, including Barton nailed 11 threes. Brunswick made 6 of them. Nobody shot a ton of free throws at all. Rebounding battle favored the defending national champions, as did the turnover battle, 11-17. Points off those turnovers, again, 11-17. They tied in the second chance points, and Barton once again controlled the paint and the fast break and the bench, all winning those categories. Barton led from the jump. There were no ties. There was no lead change. Let's go ahead and look at the first half stats for both these teams, starting with the Dolphins of Brunswick Community College. Cam Oates led the way for them in the first half, 2 of 4 shooting with 6 points, and he had 3 assists. Armani Henderson and Tyrone Barbie each had 4 points as starters for the Dolphins. Off the bench, Alice Bowser led the way with 7 points off of a 3 of 5 shooting performance, and Zion Gardner was 3 of 4 for 6 points. For Barton, they were led by Keandre Kendall, who was 6 of 9 shooting, good for 13 points. Brent Moss was 3 of 8, good for 6. And Sebastian Mucic was 2 of 4 for 8 points. Off the bench, Fontaine Williams was 3 of 4, including 2 trays. He had 8 points in the first half as well. And Mucic had 2 trays as well. In the second half, Barton was able to expand on their big lead at the break. Cam Oates kind of disappeared a little bit. He finished 1 of 5 in the second half. Henderson for the Dolphins had 6 more points in the second half, as did Derek Green. He came on late in the game and had 6 points. Landon King had a great second half. Was 3 of 6 from the field. He finished with 7 points. Bowser was 2 of 3 behind the arc, and he had 6 points off the bench as well, as Gardner had 2 points. So, as you see, it was more spread out in the scoring column for the starters for Brunswick. They just couldn't get over the hump of playing against the defending national champions and starting off slowly. For Barton, they had Brent Moss and Eris Rodriguez going 4 for 4 and 3 for 4 respectively, both having 8 points in the second half. Smith Jr. was 3 of 3, had 5 rebounds, and he had 7 points in the second half. Keandre Kendall was 2 of 5, and he had 5 points, while off the bench it was Lena Brooks Jr., who was 2 of 4, both from behind the arc. He had 6 points. And again, Barton was just able to keep that momentum that they built in the first half, and they were able to continue to ride a good wave of games. And even though they lost in their district, they come out here in the opening game of their Hutch tournament and dominate like the defending national champions do. They advance to take on Daytona State, and that will be Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, noon Central Time. Our second game of the day provided our biggest upset. Trinidad State took on Pensacola State, and Trinidad wins 83-75. They led by 11 at the break, and Pensacola State made it a game in the second half, cutting their lead down to as many as 4. But Trinidad State was able to hold on and win this ball game 83-75, as I said. Let's go ahead and look at the stats here for Trinidad State and Pensacola State. Trinidad State was 29 of 55, good for 52% from the field. Pensacola State was 30 of 68, good for 44%. Trinidad State was 9 of 20, while Pensacola State was 5 of 19 from behind the arc. So there's your big difference for Trinidad State, as well as shooting over 50% from the field. They were 9 of 20, good for 45% from behind the arc. They made their free throws 16 of 20. Pensacola State was 10 of 15 from the foul stripe. They won the rebounding battle 39-29, but they lost the turnover battles 15-7. They lost the paint battle 34-40, as Pensacola State really liked to work it in the paint, but it was not enough for them. Again, this game was more entertaining than the first game of the day, as we had 3 ties and 4 lead changes, and Pensacola State got within 4 to start the second half, and it looked like Trinidad State was on the ropes a little bit. They were able to recover, and they were able to advance here. The first half stats look like this. First, for Trinidad State, Amir Reeves was 7 of 10 shooting, and he had 17 points, while Patrick Latif was 5 of 10 shooting, and he had 12 points. Or Latif Patrick, excuse me. But those were the 2 big scores for Trinidad State. Had over 75% of their points going into half. Pensacola State was a little bit more spread out. Will Vassar was 4 of 6 shooting. He was 1 of 3 from behind the arc, and he had 9 points. He was the only starter that put in decent numbers for Pensacola State, while Dayton Cologne was 2 of 8 shooting for 4 points. The next highest scorer as a starter off the bench, Jalik Nichols was 2 of 4 and 3 of 3 from the foul line in the first half. He had 7 points for the Pirates. In the second half, it was more of the Reeves and Patrick show for Trinidad State, as Reeves had 14 points in the second half and Patrick had 21. Patrick was 7 of 8 in the second half, and he had 3 free throws. Had 2 rebounds, 1 assist to go along with his 21 points, while Reeves was 3 of 6 shooting, 7 of 8 from the foul line, had 7 rebounds and 14 points. Again, that led most of their scoring in the second half as well. For Pensacola State, Vassar cooled off a ton. He finished with 3 points in the second half. Armanian Savage was 5 of 10 shooting. He had 10 points. Isaiah Sutherland was 4 of 7 shooting, in all from behind the arc in the second half. He finished with 15 points in the second half, and Cologne was 6 of 12 shooting. He had 15 points in the second half. So they relied heavily more on Cologne in the second half to Pensacola State, but it just was not enough. Once again, Trinidad State, the big upset winner as the higher seed here. They advanced to play Tuesday, 2:30 Central Time, 3:30 Eastern Time. They play Trinity Valley in that game, and that should be a good matchup between these two teams. I do think it does favor the Cardinals, however. Well, today's Game 3 did not need overtime to decide a winner, as Angelina defeats South Georgia State 87-70 in this one, as, again, the second game of 3 with a decisive victory for one of these teams, and this one does favor the Angelina team. Let's go ahead and look at the stats. Again, this game just wrapped up at the Hutchinson Sports Arena, so no scoring by half. Angelina, though, led 51-29 at the break, and South Georgia State tried to make it a bit of a game in the second half, winning that one 41-36. However, it just was not enough, as we see here. South Georgia State and Angelina were white hot from the floor. The Hawks were 27 of 58, while the Roadrunners were 33 of 55. They lived up to their name, scoring that many points, a whopping 60% from the floor. South Georgia State was 6 of 13 from behind the arc, while Angelina was 12 of 23. Both teams did not get to the line too much. The Hawks were 10 of 15. Angelina was 9 of 10. However, the Roadrunners did turn the ball over 20 times, and the Hawks turned it over 15. South Georgia State got 18 points out of those 20 turnovers, while Angelina got 21 points off of the 15 turnovers from South Georgia State. Angelina did win the rebounding battle, however, 30-21, and it was mostly on the defensive end. They did get 9 offensive rebounds, however. Foul-wise, both teams were in double digits with 16 and 12. Angelina relied heavily on their bench scoring, winning that battle 30-12. And the second chance points favored the Roadrunners as well, 13-6 here. However, they also won the points in the paint battle, however, only by 4 at 36-32. And both teams did not like to run this out too much. Individual stats. First, for the South Georgia State Hawks, who end their season here, Justin McCarter was 9 of 18, shooting 2 of 4 from behind the arc. He had 4 rebounds and finished with 20 points. Devin Rainey was 5 of 7, shooting from the field. He had 6 assists to go along with his 16 points. Ashton Penniman was 4 of 11 shooting, 4 of 7 from the foul line, and had 12 points. Those are a lot of the scores for South Georgia State. For Angelina, they were led off the bench by Kyle Morgan, who was 10 of 20 from the field, 5 of 10 from behind the arc, and had 25 points. Caden Holder, a starter for Angelina, was 9 of 12, 5 of 7 from behind the arc, and had 25 points as well. So there's 50 of your 75 points right there. Damian Ellie was 4 of 4 from the field and had 9 rebounds for Angelina. He did battle foul trouble with 4 fouls. He finished with 12 points. Once again, and here are your officials for that game. Hutchinson, once again, always a great host for this national tournament. And once again, Angelina advances in this game. They will take on Jones Tuesday night at 5:30 Eastern, or 5:30 Central Time, 6:30 Eastern Time. Once again, getting the day off tomorrow. That's what I like kind of about this new format, is that you play a game, you get a day off. I know that kind of disrupts the coaches' flow of how a tournament goes, but sometimes it's nice to have that day off and to enjoy Hutch without worrying about getting to the next day. So these kids get to enjoy this atmosphere a little bit longer, and that's what it's really all about at the end of the day. So for Angelina, once again, they take on Jones 6:30 Eastern Time on Tuesday, while South Georgia State ends an amazing season for their program. And the final game of the night was Wallace State taking on Frank Phillips. The 11 seed Frank Phillips was able to handle business against Wallace State 83-69 in this ball game. And once again, not really a close contest as we look here. Frank Phillips led by 12 at the half, 38-26. It was closer in the second half, but Wallace State was just never able to close that gap, as Frank Phillips won the second half 45-43 for an 83-69 victory. Again, Frank Phillips picking up their first win in the tournament, making it to the Sweet 16. Great accomplishment by them. As we look into team stats, Wallace State just was ice cold. They were 20 of 70 from the field, while Frank Phillips was 31 of 67. Frank Phillips netted 12 threes at 29 attempts, while Wallace State was 8 of 34. Free throws kept Wallace State in the game for the most part, 21 of 28 there, while Frank Phillips was only 9 for 11. Both teams took care of the ball, which is what you needed to do at this point in the season. Wallace State had 10 turnovers compared to Frank Phillips' 9. However, it was the points off turnovers here at 10-6 in favor of Frank Phillips that helped them pick up the victory. The Lions of Wallace State won the rebounding battle 45-37 as well. So they won the turnover battle and they won the rebounding battle. Yet just this right here, that 28.6. You have to be hitting a little bit higher than that to win a game. It kept you in the game for as long as it could, but yeah, that just does not help you whatsoever. Points in the paint was pretty much even between the two teams. However, and Frank Phillips relied heavily on their bench with 42 bench points compared to Wallace State's 12. Individual scoring first for Wallace State. They had 2 players with 15 points. Kadarius Anderson, who was 4 of 17 from the field, and 2 of 10 from behind the arc. He finished with 15 points. He also grabbed 3 rebounds and 2 assists. A.J. Singleton was 4 of 8 from the field, 7 of 8 from the foul line, grabbed a team-high 14 rebounds to go along with his 15 points. Josh Page was the other line in double figures, 4 of 15 shooting. Again, none of these are going to look too pretty because as a team they only shot 28% from the floor. 2 of 9 from behind the arc, had 5 rebounds and 13 points for Wallace State. For Frank Phillips, they were led by L.A. Haynes, who was 9 of 17 shooting from the field, and 2 of 4 from behind the arc, good for 22 points. Matty Torre was 6 of 12, 2 of 2 from behind the arc, had 4 rebounds and 15 points, while Alem Fezjik was 5 of 13, all from behind the arc, and had 2 rebounds and 1 assist, finishing with 15 points. L.A. Haynes came off the bench for Frank Phillips and was obviously their leading scorer and helped them pick up a huge victory. Again, their first one, I think the announcer said, since 1958 when they were last in Hutch. So a huge win there for Frank Phillips, and a big thank you for these 3 referees right here. Again, Frank Phillips rounds out the Sweet 16 in the tournament, and it's going to be an interesting Day 3 while we have 4 more games in Day 3 to go over. Let's go ahead and talk about the bracket and how that looks right now. Like I said, Frank Phillips was the last team to punch their ticket to the Sweet 16. Let's go ahead and check out the bracket now that the first round is over, and let's just see who plays who. Again, Monday night we have Connor State taking on Snow there. Going to be an interesting matchup for them. And then we'll have on the other side of the bracket here, we'll have Triton and Cowley. Triton, the defending national runners-up, and Cowley, the 2 seed. Also, we'll have Monroe and South Plains, the 420 matchup. Again, Monroe picked up that huge victory over Chipola in the opening round on Saturday night. And then closing it off is another blue blood matchup for these 2 teams. Indian Hills versus Vincennes, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. Central Time. They will close out Day 3 of this wonderful NJCAA tournament. Again, it's been fun. We've had some upsets, but in my discussion I had with Coach Franklin last year, he said by the time you get to the Sweet 16, Cinderella's gone. They've gone home. And you have the best 16 teams in the country battling it out, and I think that pretty much runs true with this set of 16 teams. It's going to be very interesting the next couple of days who makes it to the Elite Eight, and I'm going to cover it all with you, so stick with me as I continue this recapping of the 2025 NJCAA tournament, and I will see you all tomorrow night. Peace.